It begins with a small boy gripping a stick and yelling that he is a wizard. He runs around with a friend, and the girl plays along by acting like a magical beast meant to be beaten. With his fake staff raised, the boy gathers himself for a big strike, then swings without thinking and smacks her on the head for real. The girl reacts fast, upset that it actually hurt. The boy treats it like part of the game, acting like wizards are supposed to hit beasts. That pushes the girl to demand a turn as a wizard too, but he shuts her down. Nearby, an old man stands back and watches the whole thing. Not long after, the elder, Labus, remarks that the kids are overflowing with energy that morning. The two children rush over and ask what it takes to become wizards, but Labus makes it clear it doesn't work like that. He explains that true mages sit at the top of human society, holding power passed down through bloodlines, and they keep control through those inherited gifts. Because of that, he says the children won't simply become mages by wanting it. A young man nearby challenges that claim. He brings up a rumor he heard, and Labus studies him with interest. The young man asks if it's true a magical beast has shown up in the area. Labus confirms it with a grim look, and fear spreads through the villagers. He describes what was found at the village entrance, a massive leopard-like creature wrapped in shadow. A woman quickly steadies her frightened daughter, saying the village chief already went to the city to bring back a mage. That calms the crowd. People start believing the beast will be dealt with soon. The mother still warns her child to stay out of the forest until it's safe. Labus backs that up, warning everyone that facing a beast without a mage is close to impossible. The same young man asks if the whole village has heard the news, and Labus says they have. Then the young man asks about a certain boy, but Labus doesn't seem to recognize who he means. The young man clarifies that he's talking about the boy from Hisaril Hill. The scene shifts to a shepherd named Turan stretched out in the grass, staring up with a bored, empty look while his sheep linger nearby. He sinks into the same complaint he's had for too long. Life feels dead and pointless. Every day shows him the same view, the same path, the same work, repeating until it all blurs together. He thinks that if it keeps going like this, he might even forget how to talk. A sharp voice suddenly snaps him out of it, calling him a pitiful kid. Labus has come again, irritated that Turan is already wasting time. Turan fires back by complaining that the old man's shadow is ruining his rest. Labus calls him disrespectful and asks if he's still bitter about what happened before. That old wound is still there. Turan recalls how Labus tried to take his flock after Turan's mother died. Since then, Turan hasn't felt any urge to be kind or share what was left to him with the village. He pushes Labus to stop circling and say what he came for. Labus bristles at the boy's nerve, but Turan doesn't flinch. He holds Labus's stare with a hard, steady look, refusing to back down. The elder drops the warning in full, and the young man jolts upright in surprise. Labus lays it out as a leopard as big as a house, and he claims he came straight there to warn him. What throws Labus off is how the shepherd shows almost no fear. He can't read where that calm comes from, but he still tells him to watch himself. Labus insists he came because he was worried. The shepherd calls that a lie. He throws it back in the old man's face, saying the worry is for the sheep, not for him. Labus snaps at that, anger flashing hard. The shepherd cuts him off and tells him to leave if he has nothing else to say. He even throws a crude insult, saying the old man's breath is so foul it could rot a nose. Labus storms off, boiling with rage. The shepherd stays put, calmly rubbing one of his sheep as if nothing happened. Once he's alone, the shepherd lets his thoughts drift back to the beast. Magical beasts are explained as the animal side of what mages are, creatures that can use mana the same way humans with power do. The idea of a real mage coming to the village sparks something in him. He feels a rush, imagining what it would be like to see one up close for the first time. At the same time, he assumes the mage won't be anything special, since the call came from a poor, remote village. Still, curiosity bites at him. He wonders how strong that mage will be. Then a strange smell slides into the air and pulls his attention hard. His body reacts before his mind fully catches up. The scent feels wrong, sharp enough to raise his pulse. He recognizes it fast. He looks up at the sky and takes it in like a warning that hits his blood. As dusk settles, he makes a choice and follows that scent into the forest to find out what happened. He moves along the dirt path with care, tracking the trail through the trees. Each step confirms he's going the right way. The smell thickens as he pushes deeper, heavier with every breath, until it starts to feel like it's clinging to the inside of his mouth. Then he stops cold. Ahead, he finds Labus and other villagers sprawled out, torn up by a brutal attack. The shepherd's stomach drops. He never expected the source of that smell to be Labus himself. He scans the damage and sees it clearly. No normal wild animal could do this. The wounds, the force, the destruction all point to one thing. This was the work of a magical beast, not some common predator. A strange sound cuts through the quiet. The shepherd tightens instantly, fully alert. From the darkness, a massive paw slides forward, claws long and sharp, moving slow like it knows it owns the place. A huge black creature steps out next, its shape heavy and wrong, its presence crushing the air around it. The magical beast reveals itself completely, standing in front of the young shepherd. Right then the story jumps back to the little boy from earlier, now asking how strong those beasts really are. His father explains that a normal adult wouldn't last against one, not even for a moment. The boy grows uneasy and asks what will happen to the village. His father keeps him steady, saying the chief already went to bring a mage back to deal with it. That answer doesn't ease the boy completely. He asks, tense and afraid, if a mage can actually beat the monster. The father confirms it, describing mages as rare people born with magic, the kind who can drop a magical beast with a single word. The scene snaps back to the forest. The shepherd faces the creature without a flicker of fear. He speaks one short command, telling it to fall. Something unseen slams into the beast. It jerks like it got hit by an invisible force, confused by what just happened to its body. At the same time, the young man's body starts to glow, a thick red aura rolling off him like heat. He rubs at his head, realizing his first idea didn't land the way he expected. The beast takes the opening, roaring and rushing him with raw fury. The shepherd doesn't panic. He throws another command, telling the giant thing to stop. In the blink of an eye, a strange power slices through the monster, cutting it clean as if the air itself turned into a blade. That shocks him. He realizes he can't fully control the strike, even if he wants to. Still, the beast refuses to go down. Its body flares with light and knits itself back together, healing right in front of him like the damage never happened. With another violent roar, it proves it's nowhere near finished. It charges again, forcing the shepherd to retreat to avoid getting crushed. His first approach has failed, so he switches tactics without wasting time. He bends down, grabs a small stone, and locks it into his palm like it matters more than a weapon. He tightens his grip and readies his slingshot, deciding to fight like a shepherd should. The monster barrels in for another hit. The young man pours magic into the stone and orders it to become tougher. He starts spinning the slingshot, building speed. His eyes light up with a sharp golden glow as his focus narrows to a single point. He pushes again, commanding the stone to become faster, and he spins harder until the strap hums with force. He plants his feet, braces his whole body, and loads the throw with everything he has. Then he gives the last order, telling the stone to pierce its target. The stone launches like a bullet, blazing with blue energy. It cuts through the air in a straight line and hits the monster in the head before it can even react. A thick red mist bursts out into the trees. The stone doesn't slow down. It punches straight through and keeps flying, vanishing past the body like the beast was made of paper. With its head pierced, the massive creature collapses, finally dead. The moment rewinds slightly, showing the beast still throwing itself forward for a final rush. The shepherd already has his aim set, calm and sure, ready for the counter. The stone flies again toward the fallen giant, straight at the head. It strikes clean, does heavy damage, passes through without effort and continues on its path. The young man doesn't move as the dead weight drops behind him. He notes that this was the first time he used that power on a magical beast. He looks at the corpse and weighs what to do with it, considering tossing it off a cliff just to be rid of it. Annoyance rises in him as he complains that, in the end, he still ended up doing the villagers a favor. Then the truth shows through in a tight focus on his eye. He isn't just a shepherd. He's a mage. A memory takes over, and he explains that he first found his ability 8 years ago. When he was 10, he used his power to make objects float around the house. He got excited and tried to call his mother over, eager to show her firewood lifting into the air. But when she appeared, her face was hard and serious, and she wasn't pleased at all by what she saw. He also told her he could make fire and wind, and that memory stayed sharp in his mind. His mother snapped at him to stop, furious in a way he had never seen before. It was the only time she ever truly lashed out, and it left him stunned. Turan didn't understand why she reacted like that while she picked up the floating firewood and forced herself to stay steady. Then she lowered herself in front of him, close enough that he couldn't ignore the weight in her eyes. She said they needed to talk. She asked if he wanted to stay with her for a long time. He agreed without hesitation, and she made him promise to never use that power again. She also banned him from showing it in front of anyone else. Turan pushed back, confused, asking why. She brought up the stories she had told him before about nobles and knights. Turan later remembered every word of it. She explained that nobles were the bloodline of lords who once saved humanity, and knights were born from that line. She even praised him for remembering her stories so well. She made it clear that nobles and knights were treated differently from everyone else, even among mages. Then she dropped the reason behind her fear. His power came from his father, a knight. After that, she warned him to never let anyone discover he was a mage. With a small, forced smile, she asked him to promise he would keep it hidden. Back in the present, the shepherd notes that 8 years have passed, and the promise still stands. He stares out the window and decides again that it will never be broken. He has no interest in exposing his power to anyone, and no plan to leave the mountain or give up his isolated life. Then a harsh noise breaks the quiet outside. Someone starts pounding on his door, yelling his name, ordering him to come out. Turan opens the door to see what the problem is. A group of villagers stands there, glaring with raw anger. He yawns and asks what they want. One of them throws an accusation at him, blaming him for Labas's death. Another grabs his clothes hard and calls him a shameless brat. The shouting grows louder, uglier, as a man claims Turan used the old man as bait to lure the monster in. Turan stays calm even with that grip twisting his shirt. He reads the situation fast. They aren't here for truth. They're here because they need someone to pin it on. Blaming him is the easiest path for people who spent the crisis hiding. He cuts through them with that thought, seeing their fear and weakness for what it is. They want to dump the responsibility before anyone turns the finger back on them. That pushes one man over the edge. He surges forward with hate and swings at Turan. Turan slips aside without effort, the punch cutting only air. As he moves, one thought runs clean and cold through his mind. Magic is useful for dealing with nuisances. He answers with a sharp, clean strike of his own, dropping the attacker with skill that makes it clear he isn't an easy target. In the middle of it, another thought rises, heavy with memory and certainty. When someone wants something hard enough, it can become real, paid for with mana. With a hard look, Turan murmurs a simple order, telling the attacker to fall. The man stumbles like his body betrayed him and drops face first into the grass, confused and humiliated. Even surrounded, Turan walks forward at an even pace. The others swing at him but nothing lands. They flail and miss while he keeps moving, steady and untouched. He keeps his movements controlled, trying to stay low-key so his hidden power doesn't draw the wrong kind of attention. Instead of flashing anything strange, he grabs a wooden stick and uses it like a simple tool, cracking down on anyone who gets too close. He moves fast and clean, taking control of the brawl with sharp footwork and hard hits. Another villager drops after a quick strike, then another. He keeps beating back the rude neighbors who had the nerve to storm onto his land. Then it gets worse for them. In the middle of their swings, the handles of their tools snap in midair right after clashing with him. The whole group ends up dumped onto the grass, sprawled out and groaning. Turan watches them from above and thinks about how long he has lived like this, 8 years of keeping his secret buried. He looks at the defeated men and makes it clear he has spent all that time hiding what he really is. He tells them to stop wasting energy on this and use it to prepare Labas's funeral instead. A group of women shows up next. Turan asks if they came to fight too, but they shut that down right away. One of them says they only wanted to see him. That leaves him quiet for a moment. Then he tells them to drag the idiots away and steps back inside, shutting the door on the mess. Alone again, he thinks about how going to the village will be a headache. They'll try to turn this into bargaining, twisting the situation to squeeze something out of him. He doesn't care. If they try anything, he can just beat them down again. He figures the beating was rough enough that they won't come back soon. A knock hits the door. For a second he assumes they really have lost their minds. But the sound is different, heavy, steady, confident. Whoever is outside isn't there to whine or threaten. Turan yanks the door open, already angry, ready to hurt someone. A stranger stands there. A bearded man in travel-worn clothes, calm eyes and a sword at his side. The man apologizes and asks to stay for a while because he's traveling. That word sticks in Turan's head. Traveling. It feels distant, like something from a world he never touches. The stranger apologizes again, saying he just dealt with unpleasant people. Turan thinks of his mother teaching him manners, and how he never uses that polite voice with villagers. The whole thing feels strange. He studies the sword and finds it odd to see a swordsman in a place like this. After a quiet breath, he lets the man in. The next moment shows a table covered with food. Turan has invited him to eat. He offers what he has, nothing fancy, but the traveler still looks surprised. First by the meal and then by the fact Turan has never seen an outsider before. Turan explains he was born there and raised there and he has never left the hill. The swordsman drinks from a wooden mug while watching him closely. Turan drinks too, calm and measured like he's trying to pretend this is normal. Then the visitor comments on Turan's posture and manners. For someone who has lived as a shepherd, his behavior is too polished. Turan credits his mother, then mentions she died a few years ago. The traveler responds with respect, saying she raised a fine young man and is resting somewhere good now. Turan accepts it and says he only lives the way she taught him. After that, Turan asks what brought a swordsman so far out. The man reveals he came because of a request. A leopard-type magical beast appeared in the area, and someone needed to kill it. Turan immediately understands. This is the mage the village chief went to find. The stranger confirms it without hesitation. The mage asks to question him. Turan allows it. The mage says he can sense the beast's aura nearby, yet the creature is nowhere in sight. On top of that, Turan's attitude doesn't match the situation at all. The village chief warned him about danger, but Turan sits there completely calm. The mage points out the obvious. If the beast attacked humans, Turan would be the first one hit. Then the mage locks eyes with him and presses the point, asking why he isn't afraid. That question drags Turan back into an old memory. His mother's voice returns, asking what he really was. Young Turan had asked why he couldn't tell anyone he was a mage. His mother had answered with a comparison he never forgot. Knights were like the dogs shepherds raised to guard the flock. They could be treated like family, but the moment it became necessary, they could be sold off or sacrificed without warning. She told him she didn't want that future for her son. She wanted him to stay with her, live quietly and stay safe. She made him promise he would never forget that warning. If another mage discovered the truth, they would be torn apart and he would be turned into a weapon. To keep his identity hidden, she warned that he might one day be forced to silence someone forever. Back in the present, Turan feels it like a cold weight in his chest. The moment his mother feared has finally reached him. The visitor pushes the question again. Turan's eyes flare with a golden glow. The swordsman goes quiet, watching him carefully, trying to read what that reaction means. Then the mage suddenly smiles and says Turan's expression ruined the joke. Turan doesn't get it and wonders what kind of joke that was supposed to be. He admits he doesn't really understand humor. The mage waves it off, saying the surprise makes sense since it's Turan's first time hearing a mage joke. The visitor realizes they never even introduced themselves. He reaches out his hand with an easy smile, expecting a handshake. Turan gives his name as Turan, an 18-year-old shepherd, and shakes his hand. It's the first real greeting between them since the man arrived. The mage mentions he is 75. Turan reacts that he doesn't look that old. The mage explains that mages age slowly. Turan asks how someone like him ended up wandering around. The mage says he served House Arabian for 60 years and now wants to travel during what he calls his final days. Turan finds it strange but also kind of appealing, like it belongs in some story he never got to live. The mage seems pleased by that reaction and leans into it, ready to share more. Turan listens with real interest. The older man smiles wide, and the room turns warm in a way Turan isn't used to. They keep talking and Turan realizes he's enjoying it more than he thought possible. He never expected a conversation like this to feel so easy. Hours slip away. When they finally notice, dawn is close outside. The mage is surprised the night vanished so fast and says it's time to go. He leaves silver coins on the table and explains they're the purest kind. Turan accepts them and wishes him luck with the hunt. The mage tells him not to act like it's goodbye, then jokes that he might come back someday just to get another free meal. The next day, Turan takes his sheep to graze on the hill like always. The flock spreads out across the grass under clear sun, calm and steady. With a small smile, Turan gives a call for the flock to gather. One sheep lifts its head right away, then the rest follow, moving toward him until they form a tight group around their owner in the center of the pasture. Turan thinks about last night. It was the first time he had met another mage and he can't even remember the last time he talked that much. While he rubs a sheep's head, he remembers the calmness in the old man's voice and the simple joy behind it. Out of all the adults he has dealt with, that mage felt genuinely decent. Alone with the flock, Turan reflects on how he always pictured knights as hunting dogs for nobles. Useful, loyal, disposable. He wonders how the hunt went, since there are no longer any magical beasts left on Hisaril Hill. At the same time, the mage moves through the forest and confirms something is wrong. There really are no beasts nearby. The silence doesn't feel natural. He finds signs of a battle, but he can't sense even a trace of the creature's aura. He stares at a damaged tree and starts to suspect the beast was already killed by someone else. He wonders who could have done it, and whether the chief called another mage besides him. Even so, he feels relief. The beast being dead is what matters. Then that relief shatters. A strange feeling crawls up his spine. His expression hardens as he senses a vicious presence coming closer. He spins around, reacting on instinct. From the shadows, a gigantic paw slides forward, claws huge and warped. The creature steps out and it's wrong. It looks like the same beast that attacked the village, but rotten, twisted, decaying, something dragged back from death and forced to move. The mage understands immediately. It's a corpse puppet, a marionette made from the monster's body. Shock hits him hard. He can't imagine who would do something that vile. The corpse puppet lunges, trying to crush him with a shadowy claw. The mage dodges fast, and the strike slams into the ground hard enough to tear out a crater. He recognizes the problem. This is what happens when mana isn't properly absorbed. No competent mage should leave a corpse like this. He launches upward and fires a heavy blast of energy into the puppet. He is now certain a mage killed the original beast, but he can't understand why they left it behind like this. He dismisses the idea that some rookie knight did it, because someone inexperienced wouldn't be able to bring down a monster like that. As he shapes a fireball, another thought takes hold. Whoever did this wasn't just hunting. They had another purpose. No matter what, the mage decides this has to end. He steels himself and prepares to throw everything he has into the fight. He unleashes a heavy blast of power at the shadowy creature, expecting it to rip the corpse puppet apart. Instead, the magic fades out, swallowed and erased like it never existed. Shock hits him hard. The mage realizes the monster's mana is stronger than his own. Then the creature vanishes into the trees, leaving him staring into empty space. He understands it's setting up a counterattack and starts searching the forest, trying to catch any sign of movement. That's when the enemy's shadow slips in behind him without a sound. The corpse puppet erupts out of the darkness and lashes him with a spiked tail. He has no time to move. The blow lands clean and brutal, tearing him up and leaving his arm badly injured. The force hurls him away. He slams into the ground and rolls through the grass, stunned by how fast everything turned against him. Flat on the forest floor, he can't believe a monster like this is even here. As the creature closes in, he wonders if this is where he dies. Still, he forces a determined smile. He refuses to quit. If he's going down, he plans to drag the thing with him. He gathers every bit of mana he can into one hand, building it for a last strike. The corpse puppet moves in, ready to finish him. The mage holds his focus and waits for the exact moment he can release everything at once. Then he launches himself forward, flying toward the monster for a desperate counter. A small blue light appears deep in the forest. In the next instant, a sharp streak of blue cuts through the air and slams into the creature right before it can deliver the killing blow. The hit comes from a direction the mage never expected. The impact smashes the corpse puppet into the ground and leaves it still in the middle of the woods. The old man stares, confused and stunned. Then he hears a voice he recognizes, checking if he's still alive after the chaos. He looks up and sees the one who saved him, the young shepherd. Turan stands there calm, almost quiet, like the fear never touched him. He walks down the path at an even pace as the tension in the air slowly drains away. The mage's eyes widen as the truth finally locks into place. Turan isn't just some shepherd. He's a mage and not a weak one. The old swordsman presses him, questioning why he hid it the whole time they were talking in that house. He also demands to know why Turan came back at all, since he could have disappeared and never looked back. Turan gives a small, controlled smile and starts to explain his reason in a plain, direct way. The scene shifts into a memory. A dog lies on the wooden floor in Turan's home, resting near their feet while the two sit at the table and talk late into the night. Turan points out that with the visitor's skill, he could make far more money somewhere else. He questions why the old man looks at villagers like them with so much pity. The veteran answers with a tired sigh, explaining that people like these live cut off from everything, with no real protection against how brutal the world can be. Hearing that, Turan reflects on how mages carry power that comes from the gods, and that power drags them toward a path they can't fully escape. The old man smiles and says he's proud to protect helpless commoners, but admits not every mage feels the same. Turan takes that in. He shows he understands and a satisfied look crosses his face. He recognizes that in a world this big, everyone has their own way of thinking and their own way of living. Back in the present, the final clash ends with a violent shockwave that sweeps through the forest, sealing the victory and wiping out the remaining threat. Still running through the trees, the wounded mage warns that they need to flee, because that creature was on an entirely different level. He says only a noble could bring something like that down and tells the young man to warn the village chief. The swordsman stays behind, ready to face the monster alone and buy time for the escape. Even as he braces himself, he admits he was talking tough and has no idea how long he can actually last. Turan cuts in and shuts that down. He tells him to stop worrying because it's already under control. If the last strike worked, then they're fine. A stone nearby starts to glow, answering his confidence with proof. That stuns the swordsman. He realizes Turan wasn't even close to using his full strength. The veteran knight, Korn, understands it wasn't some random meeting at all. Then more stones lift off the ground, floating in the air with intense blue energy. Turan finally lets his power show, and it becomes obvious he isn't some helpless runaway or a minor talent hiding in the hills. Turan smiles and admits he wanted to test his own limits too. With rocks hovering around him like a halo of weapons, he steps forward to face the massive shadowy creature head-on, calm and certain. Korn tries to shut it down, warning that the enemy is too strong. He insists they should fight together. But the monster doesn't wait. It charges straight at Turan. Turan answers first. A thick beam of blue power tears through the air. Korn can barely follow it. He realizes he would only slow Turan down now. So he lowers his glowing hand and stops forcing himself into the front line. His role changes on the spot. If he can't win this fight himself, then he can at least make sure Turan survives it and grows from it. Then Turan releases a crushing wave of mana that rips through part of the forest. Trees and ground suffer under the blast. Even after that, Turan clicks his tongue in irritation because it didn't do what he expected. He tries to finish with a kick, but his leg passes through the creature like it's smoke. No damage. No resistance. Korn shouts the truth into the chaos. A phantom can't be hurt by physical hits. Turan keeps his eyes on the advancing shape and asks how he's supposed to kill something like that. Korn tells him to use fire. He adds that lightning can work too. Turan extends his hand and flame slams into the monster, but it still doesn't look affected. Turan complains that it isn't working. Korn tells him he's missing the point. To affect a living thing with power, there has to be a cause. It isn't just throwing energy. It's building the right chain that lets the force stick. Then Korn freezes as understanding hits him all at once. Turan never absorbed the beast's mana. That mistake is what allowed it to become a phantom. The old mage is shaken by what he's seeing. Turan is already this strong without real training, without proper technique, without the basics drilled into him. Korn yells for him to create fire and then launch it properly at the creature. Making fire is simple. Controlling it is what takes years. Turan does it instantly. No hesitation. No struggle. He forms it like it's natural, like he's been doing it forever. Then he stomps down hard, grounding himself, loading his body for a clean strike. With one sharp motion, he sends a fireball flying with full force toward the shadowy monster. The fireball slams into the creature's eye with perfect aim, triggering a violent blast that floods the air with flames. The phantom's body starts to burn away, its shadowy form breaking apart as the fire eats through it. Korn shouts for Turan to stay locked in and keep feeding mana into the flames. If anything remains, the phantom can persist. Turan hardens his focus and forces more power into the burning mass, refusing to let it escape. The heat surges. A swirling storm of fire finishes the job, and the creature is erased completely. With the threat gone, Korn finally lets himself breathe and celebrates. He points out how absurdly strong that phantom was, high-level and dangerous, yet the young shepherd still brought it down on his own. Turan asks if it's truly over. Korn looks at him with fresh respect, impressed by what he just witnessed. Then Korn gives a warning. If Turan doesn't absorb the mana left behind, he risks facing another phantom. Turan asks how to do it. Korn tells him to picture it like draining something out. Turan closes his eyes and concentrates. Green energy begins to seep from the remains and stream toward his hand. The mana pours into him in a steady flow and he pulls it in completely. His eyes flare with the same green color as the energy entering his body. The mana spreads through him, and for the first time his inner pathways become visible, like channels lighting up under the skin. Korn freezes, stunned by the sight. He says the sensation will be overwhelming. Turan can barely process how intense it feels. Korn asks if this is his first time absorbing mana. Turan confirms it. Korn explains that mana usually grows slowly, and the fastest way to evolve is by absorbing it from others. If this is Turan's first time and he's already like this, then his potential is on a different level. Korn concludes the shepherd is not ordinary at all. Turan goes tense, the air between them turning awkward. Korn calls his name to pull him out of that silence, then bows and apologizes. He asks which noble house Turan belongs to. Turan answers by calling Korn by name, catching the veteran off guard. Korn stares at him, surprised. Turan tells him to clean his wound first. Only then does Korn fully register his injured arm. Back at the cabin, Korn sits at the table with his arm cleaned and tightly bandaged. He asks to be forgiven for pushing Turan into a fight and for acting out of line. Turan shuts it down. He says he isn't anyone important, just a shepherd who doesn't even know who his father is. He tells Korn to stop. Korn reads the seriousness in his face and agrees. Then Korn asks the question that won't leave him alone. Why would someone that powerful choose to live as a shepherd? Turan explains it was his mother's request before she died a few years ago. She warned him that if nobles found him, he would be turned into a disposable tool. Korn says his mother was wise. Turan is thrown off by that reaction. To him she always felt overprotective. Korn tells him she wasn't completely wrong. Great power always drags conflict behind it. He brings up a war from 20 years ago between noble houses, a brutal clash between House Arabian and House Sahar. The fighting is shown as something massive and unforgiving, and thousands died because of it. Out of 3,000 knights serving House Arabian, more than 900 were killed in the fighting. Korn's voice turns heavy as he admits the worst part. Every friend he had, everyone he knew well, ended up in that third who didn't make it. He remembers losing friends, losing family, watching them wiped out by the enemy until only he was left. The Wanderer says a warrior's life can end far faster than the life of a normal commoner. Still, he points out that Turan's mother misjudged one thing, his talent. That catches Turan off guard. The old man admits he is a skilled swordsman, but even so, Turan erased that phantom with disturbing ease. He says Turan's potential sits at a noble level, maybe among the highest talents around. Turan stays quiet, letting those words sink in. His mind starts drifting toward what that kind of future would mean. Then he asks if the story about his father being a knight was even true. The Wanderer explains that rare cases exist, cases where things don't follow the usual rules. After that, the veteran suggests Turan would be better off leaving the hill and seeing the world. Turan asks why. The older man answers that humanity still needs protectors to tame the land and stand between people and danger. Then he catches himself and apologizes, realizing Turan still doesn't fully understand how magic works. He breaks it down. Some abilities come from lineage, traits passed down from ancient ancestors. Those inherited traits are what split people into social classes. The mage asks if Turan ever felt like certain spells were too easy, or if he had any natural ability that didn't seem to cost mana at all. Turan wonders if it isn't just mana that makes him physically stronger than others. Then he mentions his sharp sense of smell. The mage confirms that a strong nose can be a lineage trait. He adds that skill with throwing weapons is linked to House Arabian, though it's common enough that it doesn't narrow much down. Turan pushes him to keep going and the older man agrees. But Turan notices something off. The visitor's mood shifts. His face tightens. Turan calls it out, confused. The swordsman turns serious. Turan asks what changed. With a steady stare, the elder says he already knows which noble house Turan's abilities match most closely. Turan asks which family. The veteran holds that calm, guarded expression a moment longer, then reveals it. Turan's traits belong to one of the kingdom's great houses, a family known everywhere as the Hunters. House Sahar. The name lands like a hammer. Turan goes still, shocked into silence. The sound of it echoes in his head, leaving him numb. He can barely accept that he carries the lineage of Zahar, the same house that brought so much death and pain to the man sitting across from him. He looks at the veteran and wonders if the same cursed blood runs through him, the blood of the war's villains. He doesn't know what to do with that. He doesn't know if he's supposed to apologize for people he never met, crimes he never committed. The guilt still presses down anyway, heavy and stupid and hard to shake. The silence breaks when the older man says his name in a calm, steady voice. He places a hand on Turan's shoulder and tells him to stop wearing that crushed look. He reminds Turan that he wasn't part of the past war, not even close. Still, the weight doesn't leave Turan's chest. The elder smiles softly and says that was a fight for adults. Holding on to hatred only stretches the suffering out forever. Turan asks if the man feels any regret. The veteran asks what he means. Standing there in the open pasture, Turan asks if the man regrets telling him to leave the mountain life. The old man explains the truth without dressing it up. If Turan goes after power, the path will pull him toward House Sahar sooner or later, because talent like his won't be ignored. Turan is startled by how direct it is. But then he realizes something else in the man's words. Despite everything, the veteran trusts him. He believes Turan's character is clean, and that there's something solid and decent inside him. The old man says he saw Turan's kindness the moment he risked his lifelong secret just to save a stranger. Looking ahead, he thinks someone like Turan might even stop new wars before they start. Then he tries to ease the tension, telling him not to treat everything like a death sentence, since he still hasn't chosen his path. Turan looks toward the horizon and feels his thoughts settle. They're clearer now than they've ever been. A small smile forms as he admits he has finally decided to come down from the hill and see the world for himself. The veteran is glad to hear it, but he warns against leaving too suddenly because of his injuries. Turan answers that he won't go anywhere until his friend is fully healed, and that choice shows exactly what kind of person he is. Watching him from the window later, the older man concludes Turan truly has a rare heart and a future that won't stay small for long. After that, the veteran begins teaching. He explains that magic needs mana, the so-called key to omnipotence. Turan turns that over in his mind, but the old man corrects the idea. Mana isn't as absolute as people make it sound. Turan asks what decides how mana turns into real magic. The man raises 3 fingers and says the difficulty depends on 3 things: lineage, affinity, and causality. He starts with lineage. It's tied to family blood and affects most nobles. He uses his own injury as an example. Turan admits he couldn't heal it with magic. The veteran explains that some lineages can heal without training at all, like a family from the south whose power does the work naturally. Then he moves to affinity, describing it as familiarity. Turan understands right away and compares it to how he made a fireball by treating it like a thrown stone. The veteran agrees, adding that simply creating flames wouldn't give the same speed or force as shaping it with the right feel and method. Finally, he names the last and most important factor: causality. Even he admits he doesn't fully understand it. To show what he means, he asks what would happen if Turan tried to strike him using only raw mana. The result would be weak because there's no cause built for the effect. He demonstrates on the mug. The water begins to boil. He explains that this kind of result appears when mana is pushed without the right cause behind it. Turan watches and says he finally understands it a little. If he wants to take someone down, he needs to create a cause that makes sense, like launching a fireball instead of just forcing mana forward. The veteran is impressed and jokes that Turan could have been a scholar. Then Turan asks why he needs these rules for magical beasts if he can control normal animals. The old man explains the difference is the mana inside the beast. Turan takes it in and realizes a real mage doesn't just throw mana around, they understand how it works and why it sticks. Turan asks if the Zahar lineage has its own special ability. The veteran confirms it does and says they're known for tracking. Then he challenges Turan to try it. Turan accepts immediately. He closes his eyes and focuses, willing himself to leave no trace, no sound, no scent, nothing. White smoke starts to rise off his body as he pours energy into the spell. The older knight watches closely, unsure if it actually worked. Then Turan vanishes from the chair. Only a faint streak of golden light remains on the floor. The veteran confirms it worked because Turan is no longer visible. Seeing that ability in action tightens something in him, the old fear he carried from the past. The room feels empty, like Turan erased himself from the world around him. A moment later, Turan reappears in a flare of light, proving the spell held. The veteran calls it a terrifying gift, one feared by Arabian knights for good reason. Still, he warns that invisibility isn't perfect. It has limits and weak points. He decides to teach Turan how to train it. Turan questions whether it's dangerous to help someone tied to an enemy house. The veteran reminds him that Turan saved his life and treated his wounds. With a hand pressed to his chest, he makes it clear he trusts Turan's character completely. The scene cuts to the village. The chief shouts in disbelief when he hears Turan is selling his sheep and leaving. Turan stands ready for the road, equipped for travel, while the chief complains that he's leaving without warning anyone. The mage with him only smiles, questioning why Turan should care what others think about his own property. Turan lays down terms. If they don't pay a fair price, he'll release the whole flock and walk away. One of the men Turan beat before calls out in panic, warning the chief not to push him. The chief grumbles, knowing Turan is the type who follows through. With no real choice, he hands over a bag of coins and the sale is done. The elder tells Turan to do whatever he wants. And with that, the 2 travelers finally leave the village behind. On the road out, Turan remembers the village still owes the mage payment and offers to collect it for him. Korn refuses right away. He says he won't take anything because the one who truly killed the magical beast was Turan. Turan accepts that with a small smile, and they keep walking side by side along the dirt road until the trees thicken and the forest line comes into view. At the forest edge, Korn stops and says this is where they split. He apologizes for not traveling together and admits he feels better moving alone. Turan accepts it and thanks him for the help and the lessons. Korn gives a quiet farewell and tells him to stay safe out there. Turan answers the same way, hoping they'll meet again someday. He stands there and watches for a long time as Korn's figure shrinks down the trail and finally disappears. Only later does Turan understand why he never wanted Korn to talk to him in stiff, formal ways. Deep down, Turan had always wanted a father figure, someone solid to follow, someone to measure himself against. Korn had filled that empty space without even trying. He had become the kind of man Turan wanted to grow into. The scene shifts. Footprints cut across pale sand in a dead desert. Wind howls through rocky cliffs and jagged formations, dragging dust across the ground. Alone, Turan moves forward with his hood up, crossing the open wasteland with no cover and no comfort. He shields his eyes and keeps walking step after step through heat and grit. Then he sees movement in the distance. A group of people out there in the desert. His first thought is traveling merchants. The chance of directions and help feels like luck. He heads toward them, hopeful. As he gets closer, he prepares to ask for the nearest city. The leader challenges him instead, asking what kind of person blocks their path like that. Still, the man gives an answer. He says the road leads to a city called Murai. Turan takes it in and nods, relieved. He thanks the man and turns to continue on his way. That's when one of them stops him and tells him to wait. The tone changes. The man asks if Turan really plans to leave after taking what he wanted. He says if someone receives something they should give something back. The group draws their swords. Their message becomes clear without any need for more words. They order him to remove his bag. Turan finally understands. This isn't a merchant group. It's a trap. They're bandits. The leader smiles like it's routine and makes it worse, implying nobody would question a death out here. They tell him to hand everything over peacefully, like that would be the easiest way for everyone. Turan reads them fast. These aren't petty thieves. They're the kind who don't hesitate to kill. A flash of training cuts through his mind. Korn's lessons. Causality. Building a real cause before forcing an effect. Making power stick. Turan's face settles into calm confidence. He decides these men will serve a purpose. If they want to fight, then they'll become his first real targets for training in the open desert. One of the bandits stares at Turan's calm face and can't understand his attitude. The group starts laughing. One of them mocks him, acting like the boy is speaking as if he were a mage. Turan answers without hesitation. His hand begins to glow and he lets them see exactly what they walked into. He shapes the air with a quick motion and summons a twisting tornado. The wind explodes outward and throws the thieves across the sand like they weigh nothing. As they hit the ground, he notes that shaping wind with his hand costs far less mana than creating it from nothing. The bandits groan and scramble, trying to understand what just happened. Turan is momentarily surprised by how easily it worked. He doesn't waste time. He grabs his water and sets up the next spell. The liquid shifts and hardens into a sharp ice spear, floating in the desert air. Then more form beside it, several cold projectiles hanging in place, ready. One bandit freezes in pure fear as the mage's power becomes undeniable. The spears shoot forward. One of the thieves is pierced clean and drops, finished on the sand. Turan judges the result without emotion, thinking the spell would be even better near a real source of water, and that throwing rocks still feels stronger. The leader collapses to his knees and begs, claiming he didn't know Turan was a mage. The others rush to offer everything they have, promising anything if he spares them. Turan answers by stomping his foot into the sand, making it clear he isn't listening. Stone pillars surge up from the ground and drive forward like a moving wall. The bandit chief stares, horrified, unable to believe what he's seeing. The end is ugly and quick. One by one, the thieves are crushed and wiped out by Turan's magic. Turan walks up to the leader, who panics and promises to answer anything if he's allowed to live. Turan asks why they attacked without any plan since he could have been a mage. The answer makes Turan blink. The man says it happened because Turan bowed. The leader explains they assumed politeness meant weakness, that a respectful traveler had to be an ordinary person. Turan takes that in. Instead of anger, he feels something colder, clarity. He thanks the man because that answer teaches him something useful. Hope surges in the leader's face. He asks if Turan will really spare him. A single drop of water rises and floats above the man's head. The leader remembers Turan's name, and the night with Korn flashes back like a warning. Korn had said Turan would meet many people, and he had also warned him never to feel pity for bandits who hurt others. Turan finally understands why that advice was so hard. Sparing one out of soft feeling can cost 10 innocent lives later. The lesson settles into him like a weight. His expression turns firm. He decides he has waited long enough. He ends it. Afterward, he follows the cart tracks cutting through the sand and keeps moving across the desert. As he walks, a clean thought rises for the first time, sharp enough to hurt. He looks back at the trail and realizes he has taken human lives. Guilt pushes up in his chest, but he doesn't let it steer him. He remembers Korn's warning and knows people who steal without hesitation will do it again. The confusion in his heart slowly quiets and he keeps walking. After a long stretch of travel, the desert finally gives way to a new sight: life, movement, color. Turan stares, stunned by what opens up ahead. On the horizon stands a city, wide and busy, with a massive castle rising at its center. A sign marks the place. Mirai. It's called a small city, but to Turan it looks enormous. He has never seen so many people gathered in one place. Even the buildings look strange compared to the rough village structures he grew up with. As he steps into the market streets, surrounded by noise and crowds, he finally feels like he has entered a real city. He stops at a fruit stand. The vendor greets him with loud energy at first and asks what he wants to buy. Turan answers that he isn't there as a customer. Instantly, the vendor's mood turns sour. He tells Turan to leave if he isn't buying anything. Turan is thrown off by how fast it changes. He wonders if there's some rule here where you have to purchase before you're allowed to speak. To test it, he points at the red apples and asks what they cost. The vendor names the price in Dupit and keeps studying the young outsider with open curiosity. Turan starts counting out coins and the seller adds that he accepts other types of payment too. After the purchase is done, Turan asks where he can find an inn. The vendor points him along a route and tells him to follow the path. Turan follows the directions and ends up in front of the biggest place around, a large building that works as both a bar and a dormitory. The moment he steps inside, a young employee named Lena greets him with a bright, friendly smile. She throws in a compliment about his looks while Turan asks how much it costs to stay the night. Lena tells him the daily rate is 16 Dupit. Turan agrees instantly and doesn't even hesitate. He hands over his money bag, but he says there's something important he wants to ask. Lena holds the payment and leans in, curious. Turan asks if there are any monsters nearby with cash rewards on their heads. He needs targets to hunt, both to absorb mana and to build up coins. Lena goes quiet and stares at the gold. Turan asks why she stopped talking. Lena finally answers that nothing comes free in this world, then mentions City Hall. Turan looks lost. Lena is surprised he doesn't even know what City Hall is and calls him a total country bumpkin. She explains that public matters are handled there, and the people working inside do it under the local lord. She adds that it's probably closed already and tells him to go early tomorrow. Then Lena asks if Turan is a monster hunter. Turan doesn't understand the term. Lena explains the local legend. Normal people can become mages by hunting monsters. She asks if that's what Turan is aiming for. Turan touches his hand and doubts it, thinking it sounds like a silly superstition. A strong man cuts into the conversation and says it's real. He claims he saw it happen with his own eyes. Lena stiffens when she recognizes him. Mitten? Mitten announces he won't stop until he becomes a mage. Then he pats Turan on the head, apologizes for barging in and starts to step back. Turan doesn't let it end there. He's interested now and asks Mitten to explain more about becoming a mage through hunting. Lena, looking bored, shrugs it off. If mages grow stronger by hunting, she says, then regular people should become mages the same way. At least that's the idea people cling to. Mitten confirms that he and his group hunt monsters for exactly that reason. Turan asks if anyone in the group has become a mage yet. Mitten answers that there are only 4 of them in the city. Then Mitten looks Turan over and notices his clothes. He asks what kind of weapon Turan even has for hunting. Turan shows him his slingshot. Mitten studies it and can tell right away it's been used a lot. He says a weapon like that could handle small monsters, things like rabbits or foxes. Then he admits his group needs another marksman and invites Turan to join them. Turan answers with a faint, unreadable smile. He turns the offer down. Later, he's shown lying in his room trying to rest. Staring at the ceiling, he thinks about how the day turned into one surprise after another. He looks at his backpack and still can't fully believe he really left his village behind. He wonders what comes next, and blue mana flickers around his hand. 2 knocks hit his door. Turan sits up at once, alert, and calls out to ask who's there. Korn's warning flashes back in his mind: never drop your guard, not even in an inn. A city isn't automatically safe just because it looks busy. The lesson lands again loud and clear. Turan draws his mana in, steps toward the door, and prepares to open it carefully. Turan doesn't swing the door open. He cracks it just enough to peek through, keeping himself hidden. His eyes stay sharp and tense as he checks who's outside. To his surprise, it's only Lena, the inn attendant. She smiles and asks if he was already asleep. Turan looks confused. Lena says she came to warm him up, because she assumed his room was cold. Turan asks what she means. Lena answers with a suggestive look, saying it's exactly what it sounds like. She lingers in the doorway with a shy posture and offers to stay with him for money. Turan asks what happens if he isn't interested. Lena steps closer and says he shouldn't pretend, claiming his face gives him away. Turan doesn't react the way she expects. He shuts his eyes and pulls on a calm, blank expression, like a monk who has cut off all desire. Lena freezes, shocked into silence by how unnatural his reaction is. Another memory flashes up, Korn yelling at him not to do that. Korn had warned him that many girls like that carry illnesses and trouble. Turan remembers the lesson clearly: don't let desire drag him into something stupid. Lena leaves in a huff. Turan lies back down and thinks the city isn't easy either. First the fruit seller, now Lena. The place feels cold, quick to bite. Elsewhere, one of the monster hunters questions his leader. He asks why the boss wanted to bring the newcomer along when he doesn't look useful. Mitten answers that the boy's arrogant attitude would make him perfect bait. But the truth slips out too. The newcomer reminded him of his younger self and he worried about that flimsy weapon. If the rookie stayed near him, maybe he'd survive a little longer. Back in his room, Turan hears the conversation through the wall. A slight smile pulls at his mouth. Maybe the city isn't as heartless as he thought. The next day, Turan heads to the city hall to start for real. Inside, an employee greets him politely and asks what he needs. Turan asks if he's an official. The man answers with a look that says the question is obvious. Turan gets straight to the point. He says he came to hunt monsters. The official looks surprised. Turan recalls Korn's warning again. This world won't be kind for no reason. Korn had said the way to be treated well is simple. Show people you're a mage and respect follows. Turan holds that thought as the official hands him a paper with a hunting request. The man warns him not to take the poster, only read it and return it. Turan studies the drawing and asks if it's a crow. The official mocks him, asking if it looks like a cat. Then he gives a real warning: bring the monster's body back. If the mana isn't handled, it can turn into a phantom. Turan says he already knows. Leaving a magical beast corpse behind carries a death penalty. He remembers the disaster before and states he won't repeat that mistake. He asks why the knights aren't the ones hunting. The official says they don't have time because their job is keeping order inside the city, not chasing threats outside. He looks down on Turan and says this kind of work is for outlaws like him. Turan leaves. The official watches him go and assumes another corpse will end up outside. Then everything flips. A crow-like monster's eye snaps open with a sharp, sinister glow. Then the scene shows it already dead on the hall floor, a huge wound torn into its chest. Employees stare down at the body, stunned. They can't believe how fast it happened. Turan has already returned with the corpse. Turan confirms he killed it alone and asks how to claim the reward. The official stammers and says they'll pay. He hands over a bag of coins and tells Turan to get some rest. Other workers inspect the body and note the wings are still intact, impressed by the clean condition. Then someone notices Turan hasn't left. He's still standing there. The receptionist asks why he's still in the hall instead of heading back to the inn. Turan asks if there are any other monsters worth hunting nearby. The official is stunned by the question. He can't believe the young man is still asking for more hunts after coming back that fast. The scene shifts to the inn. The most expensive dishes on the menu are spread across a table. Lena sets down a full feast and admits she never imagined someone like him would take down 30 monsters in 3 days. She comments that he must have made a fortune. Turan eats without holding back. Even while enjoying the food, Turan stays serious. Coins aren't his real goal. He's after mana. That's what matters to him, and absorbing it has already made him far stronger. He can feel it clearly. His mana has multiplied since meeting Korn. But he also senses a ceiling approaching. Weak creatures aren't going to push him much further. Lena doesn't really understand what he's talking about. The owner and Lena stare at the table afterward, shocked that he cleared everything alone. The owner jokes that he eats like a starving wolf despite being skinny. Lena looks pleased that he liked it. Turan thanks them and says the food was good. As he starts to leave, someone grabs him from behind. A heavy hand clamps onto his clothes. A group of bullies steps in, blocking the way, asking if he's enjoying something good all by himself. One of them calls him a beanpole and says he heard Turan has been earning a lot of money. The brute suggests he should donate some of it to them and swings a slap at him. Turan blocks it easily. The attacker freezes, shocked. Turan stays calm and throws the words back at him, asking if he wanted a little charity after all. That makes the bully snap. He roars and winds up a full power punch. Turan slips aside and answers with a clean hit that launches the man across the room. Another goon grabs a wooden bench and rushes in. Turan stops it with one hand and shatters the bench like it's dry twigs. Then he clamps a strong grip onto the attacker's cheek and twists with effortless control. Blue light flickers in Turan's hand, and the goon drops hard to the floor, finished. Lena rushes in with a tight, forced smile, trying to calm things down. Then she snaps, yelling that fighting inside the inn is forbidden. Later, the bullies are shown bowing low and offering apologies. Back in Turan's room, Mitten shows up and says he already dealt with them and it won't happen again. He explains they've been short on money and got jealous seeing Turan's winnings. The two goons stammer out their apologies. Turan asks if things are really that rough. Mitten admits they're tight. He clenches his fist and says in about 3 days he'll scrape together enough to pay for the room, but it's his own problem. Turan holds out a bag of coins with a small smile. Mitten stares, stunned. Turan says it's payment for Mitten's kindness earlier for inviting him. Mitten asks how Turan knew. Turan repeats the rule of the city: nothing is free in this world. Then he asks for information in return. Mitten brightens, saying that's what he does best. The scene cuts to a wide view of Mirai, its buildings packed together under the shadow of the castle. Turan stands on a cliff preparing to move, thinking this might be his last hunt in the city. Mitten has already given him details about the next city, so it's time to go. Turan admits that information was worth it. He also decides Mitten is a good man. When he compares him to Korn, he feels the difference. Mitten is less experienced but in some ways more open and kinder. Then Turan's eyes widen. A familiar scent hits him, sharp and wrong. His stomach tightens. Hoping he's mistaken, he takes off at full speed into the forest. He finds huge claw marks ripped into a tree, clear signs of a fight. His expression turns hard as he follows the trail of destruction deeper into the woods. Then he finds it. A horrible scene. Someone is down, badly injured. Turan recognizes him as one of Mitten's hunters. He studies the area with a cold, focused stare, trying to piece together what happened. The man's eye is lifeless. He didn't survive. Coins lie scattered nearby, half buried in dirt and splashed across ground stained bright red. Crouched beside the blood-stained ground, the young mage tries to make sense of what happened to Medon and his team. The signs are wrong. Too much damage. Too fast. Then a faint sound cuts through the silence. He turns and finds another hunter barely alive, slumped behind a tree. The man forces out one last word with the little strength he has left. Rabbit. It doesn't make sense at first. Then a brutal image flashes through the scene, an oversized rabbit with a mouth smeared red. The young man scans the area again and spots more bodies. Too many. All torn apart. This wasn't a normal ambush. They were slaughtered by a monster. A shape moves. A giant rabbit-like creature steps out, red eyes burning, horns rising from its head like twisted crowns. The young mage pivots immediately, squaring up to face the killer. The beast attacks without warning. It explodes forward at a terrifying speed, closing the distance in a blink. The young man is caught off guard by how fast it is and barely manages to react. He slips away at the last moment. The rabbit stops for a beat, locking onto him with raw hatred. He gathers mana and forms a barrier of air in front of him, bracing for the next hit. With a quick flick of his fingers, he shapes an attack and launches a sharp blade of wind straight at the creature. The strike lands, but the rabbit answers in a way he didn't expect. It whips its tail like a weapon and smashes the air barrier apart, shredding it as if it were thin glass. The young man reads it instantly. This thing has fought ranged attacks before. It knows how to deal with thrown weapons. The rabbit stomps hard enough to shake the ground and charges again, trying to crush him head-on. It leaps high, then dives down with full force, aiming to end it in one blow. Its eye flares with intense light as it commits everything into the strike. The young man dodges again. The rabbit slams into the ground instead, carving impact into the earth. It doesn't slow down. It spins and sprints at high speed, staying on him, refusing to give him space. The young mage closes in at the right moment and drives a direct mana strike into the creature's face. The impact makes it scream in pain. He uses that opening to pull back, jumping away to buy distance and time to think. Then the rabbit's body starts glowing. Golden energy spreads across it like a coat and the pressure in the air shifts. It charges again, faster than before. Its speed becomes hard to track. It starts producing afterimages, splitting into blurred shapes as it zigzags across the clearing. The pattern is meant to ruin aim and force mistakes. Dust erupts, thick enough to hide movement. Inside the cloud, the monster screams and tears through trees, smashing trunks apart as it thrashes and hunts him down. When the dust thins, the truth shows. The rabbit is hurt. Blood leaks from a paw in its back. Its mouth is smeared red, but its strength is fading. Then it drops. The massive rabbit collapses to the ground, finally defeated. The young mage stands alone in the clearing, steady and ready, already thinking ahead. He approaches the body and moves to do what matters most now, take the mana before anything else can go wrong. He extends his hand and starts absorbing immediately. Green energy pours into him in a heavy stream. The amount is insane. It dwarfs the mana he took from the leopard before. The power flooding into his body is so large it almost doesn't feel real. Behind him, the surviving hunter speaks again, calling him a mage. The young man confirms it, and the hunter demands to know why he hid it. Tears gather in the man's eyes. He explains that none of them had families to pass anything down to, and now there's nothing left but loss. His thoughts drift to Medon and the dream they all carried together. A memory surfaces. Medon once talked about a city called Orum, a place with a library. He described it with a proud smile, saying it held thousands of books, open for people to read. Medon noticed the young man finally reacting, finally caring about something he said. The young man asked how to get inside. The answer had been simple and cruel: entry wasn't for everyone. Only mages were allowed into that library. Back in the present, the hunter questions what the young man meant when he said he had decided something. The young mage makes it clear. He's going to Orum, the great city Medon spoke about so much. Later, he looks over the graves with a heavy, quiet stare. He leaves his hunter friend behind with that sadness still sitting in his chest. Then he turns and walks away, carrying a final wish that Medon finds peace wherever he ended up. After a long stretch on the road, the young man finally reaches a city packed with life. The noise, the crowds, the scale of it all makes his old awe for Murai feel almost embarrassing. A sign makes it official. This is Orum, the great city, massive and buzzing like it never sleeps. He never expected so many people to be trying to get in. He joins the line at the gate and watches the guards work. The security looks strict, like they're hunting criminals or troublemakers. Compared to smaller towns, this place runs on tighter rules and sharper control. Then one guard singles him out and orders him to stop. The young man pauses, confused. The guard's face twists with disgust as he points at the traveler's filthy clothes and says entry isn't allowed like that. The message is clear. Clean up first, then come back. Later, once he finally gets inside, he sees it. The library. A towering structure that rises above the city like a fortress, huge and heavy, impossible to ignore. He tilts his head up and remembers Medon talking about this place like it was a dream. The building looks unreal and he wonders if magic shaped it. He walks toward the entrance and draws the attention of two guards stationed at the door. He makes it clear he wants to enter. One of them shuts it down immediately, warning that the library is only for mages. The young man doesn't hesitate. He states that he is a mage. The guard stares at him like he just heard nonsense. Anger follows fast. The man demands to know if he wants to get dragged out for pretending, because someone like him couldn't possibly be a mage. The guard moves to shove him away. Red mana flares from the young man's hand. The guard freezes, stunned. A memory of corn surfaces. Mages can recognize each other easily. By sensing mana, they can even tell who is stronger. The young man's eye ignites with a deep, frightening red glow. Pressure floods the air around him. The guard is thrown backward by sheer force and crashes to the ground. His partner rushes to help him up. The shaken guard tries to act fine, but the truth hits him hard. This isn't some minor mage. This is someone from the noble class or higher. He introduces himself as a knight of House Baltas and asks which family the young man belongs to. The young man questions whether he even needs to answer to get inside. The knight says it isn't required for entry, but adds a new barrier. Using the library needs permission from the master of Baltas. He says he'll contact the noble house. The next scene shows the young man sinking into a luxurious bath with a tired sigh. He had expected getting into the library to be simple. Instead, it's already turning into a full process. A maid appears, watching him with a shy look. Then more maids step in and start attending to him. He clearly doesn't like it. He wonders how his life turned into this. 3 young women helping him bathe like he's some priceless guest. He awkwardly tells them to stop. They answer at the same time, obedient. One explains that if they fail to serve an important guest, they'll be punished. He gives up arguing and tells them to do what they want. The maids visibly relax and thank him. After the bath, one maid stares at him, openly impressed, then slaps a hand over her mouth when she realizes she reacted too strongly. Dressed in clean, new clothes, he asks if something is on his face. She apologizes and admits she blanked out because the guest is too handsome. He lets it slide but tells them not to speak to him so casually. Then he catches his reflection in the mirror and freezes for a moment. Cleaned up, he barely recognizes himself. A young woman with red hair walks into the room and studies him with sharp curiosity. She teases him, implying he was the guest who showed up looking like a beggar. Then she admits the truth with a smug smile. After a bath and proper clothes, he now looks like a prince. He gives his name as Turan. The red-haired woman introduces herself as Aella, a noble of the house. She asks which family he belongs to. He refuses to reveal it. Aella smiles like that answer is a gift. She says it's a shame he won't share his origin, and her eyes narrow with interest. If he wants to hide, then she decides it's time for a little game. Orange mana detonates through the hall like an explosion, flooding the room with crushing pressure. The blast catches Turan off guard. Aella stands there with a challenging look, pushing her power outward and demanding he show his own. Turan feels the weight of her mana slam into him, heavy and intense, and he realizes just how dangerous this noble woman is. The moment Turan sensed Aziel's spirit force, he answered with his own, letting his energy pour out without pause. In a blink, the entire room drowned in raw power as the two forces met. Their mana slammed together head-on, making the air turn thick and hard to breathe, trembling under the strain. A guard rushed in front of the maids, putting himself between them and the spreading pressure, but the heavy aura still rolled through the chamber like a storm that refused to settle. After several tight seconds, Turan cut off his release. Aziel stopped as well, already done testing him. She didn't look threatened. She looked pleased, almost too pleased. Her eyes dropped to her hands, studying them with a strange focus, like she had just proved something important to herself. Then she flashed a playful smile and threw out a sudden marriage proposal. The words hit Turan like a strike to the head. He locked up, stunned, his thoughts wiped clean for a moment. Aziel noticed his frozen face and teased him for reacting like that, brushing it off as a joke, yet still pushing him to consider it. She made it clear the place beside her was empty. With that final jab, she turned and left with her guard, her presence sticking to the room even after she was gone. Turan stayed where he was, stuck in place, trying to untangle what she meant. He glanced down at his hand, feeling the faint aftershiver from their clash still lingering in his body. Doubt slid into his mind as he quietly weighed what he had just felt. Her mana matched his. If that was true, then maybe this level of strength wasn't rare here. The scene shifted to a different room. A man waited there in calm silence, Rug Valtas, the Lord of Orum. When Turan entered, the noble received him with steady composure, acknowledging that Turan already knew who he was. Rug repeated Turan's name as if testing how it sounded, then went straight to the point. Turan wanted access to the library. Rug didn't waste time feeding fantasies. People came chasing rumors, so he shut them down early. There was no hidden ancient miracle inside that library. No secret method to skyrocket mana overnight. Turan listened without flinching. He accepted it outright, making it clear he hadn't come for cheap shortcuts in the first place. Rug studied him for a moment, then allowed it. Nothing inside was confidential to the house anyway. Still, the day was already late. Turan would rest and return tomorrow, and Rug asked if that was fine. Turan showed real gratitude, bowing his head, promising he wouldn't forget the kindness. The next day, the Grand Magic Library came into view. Turan walked toward the immense tower, its height stabbing into the sky like it was built to challenge the heavens. At the entrance, the guards checked him and confirmed his pass, welcoming him into the Sky Library. Turan pushed the doors open and stepped inside. His body stopped on instinct. Rows and rows of books rose above him in a massive circular design, climbing upward in a spiral that looked like it never ended. The air felt old and heavy with time, carrying the dry scent of parchment and knowledge sealed away for centuries. Turan had never seen anything like it. Awe slipped out of him before he could hold it back as he took in what the place truly was. Then a voice came from nearby, greeting him by name. He turned and found a young girl standing there. She introduced herself as the librarian, chosen by the Lord to manage the library, and stated she would explain the rules for using it. She claimed the rules were simple. Turan stared, thrown off. In his mind, the disbelief hit fast. This kid was the librarian? She raised one finger and started laying it out. If he damaged anything, he would pay for it. No messing around with books. And while he used the library, she would watch him the entire time. Turan nodded, but hesitation showed as he asked for distance while he read, admitting it would feel wrong with her hovering close. Then curiosity pushed through and he asked if she had read the books here too. She answered like it was obvious. If he needed something found, he could rely on her. She claimed she was the best at it. Then she tilted her head with a sharp, playful edge and pressed him for what he wanted, tossing out options like romance, history, or something dirty like it was all the same. Turan was caught off balance by how blunt she was, but he steadied himself quickly. What he wanted wasn't entertainment. He wanted the world's basic common knowledge. This time it was the librarian who looked surprised. She reacted fast, moving with surprising speed as she gathered a heavy stack of books and dropped them in front of him. Most of what sat in that library had survived for hundreds of years, which made it useless for anything recent. Still, she guided him toward a section that could at least fill the gaps and give him something close to practical. Turan thanked her with real sincerity. She brushed it off with an easy, casual answer. He picked up one of the books and stared at it like it was a strange tool he had forgotten existed. The thought slipped out of him as if he was relearning something basic. Then he opened it carefully and started reading. The moment his eyes moved across the pages, something lit inside him. The feeling wasn't small. It was sharp, almost hungry. The book wasn't just ink and paper, it was a door. From there, his life fell into a strict routine. Every single day he went back to the library. He stayed for hours, reading until it became normal, until it became necessary. Day after day he drowned himself in the knowledge packed into those ancient walls. Little by little the world stopped being a fog. He learned the shape of the land, the borders, and the names that mattered. He learned the races that lived in it and how they dealt with each other. He learned how wizards were expected to behave, what manners mattered, and what rules people pretended not to break. He absorbed the methods used to create and process items, how materials were handled, refined, and turned into something useful. He studied monsters that hunted in distant regions and relics that had survived since the ancient empire's time. With every detail he took in, the empty space in his head filled. What used to feel like a wide, unknown void gained form. The blurry parts sharpened. The pieces connected. The world became clearer, heavier, and more real. Then the scene shifted. The Lord stood in front of him again, calm and controlled, checking whether Turan had used the library well. Turan confirmed it with respect. The Lord made something clear right away: this had nothing to do with noble status. Granting access had been goodwill. And now the Lord wanted payment for that goodwill. Turan didn't stall. He made it simple: say what was needed. A monster had appeared north of Orum and had started attacking travelers. Turan met the Lord's eyes and understood the direction immediately, pushing the idea forward without games. The Lord continued, and his face tightened. The Phrenides who were sent to handle it never came back. They were eaten. That meant it wasn't a clean job. It meant someone with real power needed to step in. The Lord's house could only mobilize a small number of people right now, which made the situation worse. Turan agreed without drama. Deep down, the reason was clear: protecting people was part of what a wizard should do. Still, something about it rubbed wrong. It raised a quiet doubt in him: weren't wizards usually the type to avoid getting involved in problems like this? The Lord added another reason. The northern route mattered. It was a major trade path for Orum, and it had been shut down for 10 days. It needed to be reopened fast. Turan counted it in his head. 10 days. That was before he had even arrived in Orum. The pieces clicked. That explained why the Lord had handed him library access so easily in the first place. The scene shifted again. A large group left the city in an organized procession, moving north toward whatever waited out there. Among them, a comment cut through the march, an observation that the Lord was bold enough to send even a guest to hunt a monster. The voice belonged to Hisaril. She walked at the front with easy confidence, pushing the pace like she owned the road. The tone carried teasing, but there was a sharp edge behind it, like she was poking at something real. It turned into a pointed question about whether their side was truly that unreliable. Then she dismissed it, claiming she wasn't blaming anyone, just calling her father a man who created problems. The man beside her let out an awkward laugh and pushed back, suggesting that calling the Lord a messmaker was a bit much. Hisaril shut it down without effort, clearly not bothered. That same man then turned toward Turan and shifted into a more formal mood, treating it like a proper first meeting. He introduced himself as Marvin Valtas and made it clear he expected to work together. Turan returned the introduction in the same calm manner, and the group continued forward. Hisaril, still leading, kept things simple. She wanted the job finished fast so they could return and rest. While they walked, Marvin leaned slightly closer to Turan and lowered his voice, probing whether Turan had any interest in Marvin's older sister. Turan rejected the idea instantly without hesitation. Marvin looked genuinely relieved, like that answer removed a problem he didn't want to deal with. Then the men at the front threw up a signal for everyone to stop. Ahead of them lay wreckage, what looked like the remains of a destroyed carriage. Broken pieces were scattered across the path, torn apart in a way that didn't leave much doubt. The signs of violence were obvious. Whatever had hit it didn't do it gently. As they inspected the wreckage, one of them muttered a question about whether the creature was responsible. Another quickly settled on the likely answer. Since their side had blocked travel to the north, the victims had probably come from the south and walked straight into the attack. Turan stayed quiet and studied everything. He checked the scattered debris, the broken path, and the marks left in the dirt. His focus tightened as he read the damage like a message. Then he stated the conclusion with calm certainty. Was a monkey. Head snapped toward him. The word didn't match what they expected. Aziel repeated it with open doubt, as if testing whether he was serious. Turan lowered himself and pointed to a large print pressed into the ground. It wasn't a claw mark. It was a palm. The kind of imprint that explained the strength behind the smashed carriage. The creature had hit the merchants and slipped back into the forest afterward. If they found the trail and chased it, they could reach it. Aziel's face tightened. Chasing it meant tracking magic, and she barely had enough control to do something like that. She pushed the question to Marvin. He admitted he couldn't either. Someone mentioned a knight who could handle it, but before the thought finished, Turan stepped forward and took it on himself. Aziel watched him with sharper interest, probing whether he came from a specific bloodline known for that kind of skill. Turan didn't make a big deal out of it. He simply made it clear he used this method often and had practice. He started immediately. The moment he focused, his senses shifted. He drew in a deep breath, and the air gave him what his eyes couldn't. Faint traces of the monster's presence began to separate from everything else, as if invisible lines were rising into view. He followed them for a short distance, then stopped and pointed hard to one side. The trail went that way. The group moved with him until the trees opened near a riverbank. Turan halted and scanned the ground and the waterline. The scent ended here. The creature had washed itself. Aziel frowned, refusing to accept it. A monster using water to erase a trail sounded too clever. Turan didn't argue in circles. Maybe it did it on purpose. Maybe it washed itself simply because it wanted to. Either way, the result was the same. Then the scent hit again, stronger, closer, sudden. Turan's eyes widened just a little as the danger snapped into place. He turned fast and warned them it was behind them. Everyone spun around. A massive monkey-like monster stood there, bigger than expected, built like a moving wall of muscle. It roared again and again, shaking the air with its voice. In its huge hands sat several heavy stones, already lifted and ready to launch. Knights and soldiers shouted in alarm, trying to form up, trying to react. They didn't get the chance. The monster attacked first, and the moment it moved, everything broke into chaos. Stones crashed down like falling chunks of a cliff. Soldiers were hit brutally, some blasted off their feet, others crushed where they stood. In seconds, bodies piled up across the ground, wounded and dead. Turan barely escaped a direct hit, twisting away at the last possible instant. When he stabilized, his eyes caught the lifeless remains scattered across the dirt, the scene turning ugly fast. Gisela barely held on, forcing herself behind the bodies of two fallen soldiers, using them as cover. From that position she screamed for them to attack. Inside Turan's head, one thought cut through with bitter clarity. His mother had been wrong. The remaining soldiers tried to push forward anyway, desperate to strike back. But the monster shifted, turning as if it intended to run. Turan didn't let it. In one smooth motion he drew his weapon. No hesitation. No wasted movement. He released a single strike. The force behind it was not normal. Blue energy exploded outward like a focused beam, cutting through the air with brutal speed and perfect aim. The pressure of it froze everyone who saw it. One blow was enough. The massive creature was erased, destroyed completely, as if its size had never mattered at all. Silence dropped over the riverbank. The survivors stood there in disbelief, their eyes slowly drifting toward the source of that finishing strike. Turan walked forward without hurry, weapon still in hand. He spun it lightly as leftover energy rolled off his body. A faint blue aura continued to flow around him, calm and cold, sealing the fight with a single final decision.